Okay, so it was our React challenge today. We're just going to review people's attempts and just fix them if they didn't quite manage to get it. I think everyone was really close on beginner, so just a few things needed to tweak to make it work for them. Alright, so we're going to move straight on to question 2 on the beginner. Let's take that. Cool, so I think everyone got that one. That's the first question, just writing welcome to React as the text node inside of our div. So I'm going to skip that one, zoom in a bit so we can see. And yeah, this one. So we had to display the name and the age of the actors. And that's what Ewan had. So we can see the original question was like that, and then Ewan tried to add in an extra property. So what would be your first step based on this test, guys? We've got let paragraphs equals actors.findParagraph, and we expect paragraphs to have length of 2. So what would be your first step probably based on that? No, I'd put in a second paragraph as my first step. Yeah, just that we satisfy this first test, and then after that I'll worry about the text inside. So we don't need another key, as Ewan put there. We just want one unique key. I'm going to add a second paragraph to fulfill this first condition. And then we expect the first paragraph, so the one at index 0, its text we want to be Arnold space open brackets 71 close brackets, and that's it, yeah? But that information itself comes from the actors prop. Yeah, we've got actors being passed as a prop here. We're mapping across that prop anyway, so we should have access to the things inside of it. Yeah, each player is what in this case? I know it's Monday, guys, but each player is an actor. Yeah. So it's an object, right? Each player is this actor. So maybe it would have made more sense to call it actor. I don't know. But anyway, that's the way the question's set up. So hopefully you can get the idea. So if our key's the name, we want to display, by the looks of it here, the name again. So if I want to display some text, where do I put it? In between the p tags, yes. In this bit here, Ewan, yeah? In between the p tags. Good stuff. So what am I going to put in between that p tag to render the name? Player.name, yeah. And then I want a space. Outside the curly, okay, yeah. Then I want a bracket.
And then another curly for player.age.
Another curly for player.age.
And a closing bracket.
Closing curly and a closing normal bracket, yeah? Yep, that looks like that's there. So yeah, what's that, sorry? Well, I was just reading the question again, and because we're actually mapping over the actors, then we don't need an extra p tag, do we? Because the map takes care of that for us. So sorry, that's my fault for not reading the questions. Monday morning for me as well. Yeah. So because we've got 2 objects in this array, we should map over one, get this information, map over the second one, get that information. That should produce our 2 paragraphs as it is. Yes, I think the only thing missing, Ewan, was just putting the correct bit of text inside of your paragraph tag. And yeah, let's try it Porrex way. Yep. perfect, yeah?
I'll just see that a little bit longer. I'll probably
What do you want me to do? Do you want it to come across a little bit? Whoop, can't zoom that much. I really need to find something that lets me zoom in properly.
Alright, just move on. Yeah, I'll just catch the loop. Catch it on YouTube.
That's right, I mean it's essentially that bit, right?
Yeah.
So between the tag, we had a curly braces, player.name, space, open our brackets, because that's how we're rendering the age, curly brackets, player.name, close brackets. Yeah, that little bit there.
So we're using the curly player.name to get the value, but the way it wants us to have it set up is player.name and then the age in brackets. That's why we got the player.age within the brackets.
Yeah, that's the format it's looking for there, right? Name, space, and then the age inside of some brackets. Any questions? All good?
Where's the second paragraph?
So that's what I said, because we're mapping over, what does map do as a function? So it maps over every single element in the array. How many elements are in this array? 2, right? So there's going to be 2 paragraphs. Second use case, how many elements in this array? 1. And our paragraphs are expected to have length of 1. Yeah. If we had an array of 3 objects, we'd have 3 paragraphs. Map is mapping over each object and creating a paragraph tag from each object. Yeah? Sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Next. Cool. Oh, what did I change?
Add a new line.
Oh, I did the new line. Yeah, yeah. I'll just put it back up there for now. I can't go with it. Back and around. Yeah. All right. Next one. Did you have a go at this one, Ewan? Abdul did. Ewan got it right. Let's take Abdul's. Maybe Ewan can fix it after the hint I gave him. Okay, where did Abdul go wrong?
That's the take from the last one. That's the solution from the previous.
Oh, have I got the wrong one? Apologies. Okay, so we solved that. Okay, everyone got the next one right, so I won't bother going through that unless you want me to. Do you want me to, anyone?
Nope.
Nope. Nope. Cool, checkboxes. Question 4. Alright. So, did we have any props passed to our checkboxes component in this case? Any props passed? Yes? No? Yes. What were they? What were they called?
Terms, input terms. Use
What did you use? You only used terms?
Yeah.
That's definitely one of them. What's the other one? News. Yep, fantastic. We can see over here that we've got 2 props passed into our checkboxes component. And we want to have 2 input tags. One that we're going to label terms input and one that we're going to assign to a variable called news input. I think a little typo as well, Ewan, unfortunately. That might have tripped you up. I'm not sure if that was the only thing, but we've got TPYE rather than TYPE for type, which is a frustrating little error. And our second input, we also want, it's not type checked either, unfortunately. It's type equals checkbox, yeah, based on the spec. So that wouldn't be check, it would be checkbox. Okay.
Checkbox in quotes.
Checkbox definitely in quotes. I suppose the HTML convention is more double quotes, but would accept either. How else are we identifying it?
That would be putting out the class name.
Yeah, it's got dot terms and dot news, so that means we're going to need a class name in there. Or a class, yeah, but in React we have to use class name. And our first one is going to be terms. Breaking my conventions already. And our second one is going to be what? News, yeah. How do we know that? It says it down there, dot news.
Dot value coming to play.
Dot value is definitely going to come into play in a second. Yep, so we also need a third property called value. So I think I might write it like this.
Dot value is not a class.
No. It's a property, right? It's been defined as a property. Whereas that's an identifier in this case. We're finding something based on an element dot news. Yeah, I suppose it's not super clear, but again, you will just learn that pattern over time to know that when we're using the find method in our tests, we're looking for something based on a tag, a class name, or an ID. In this case, it's a class name because it's got the dot syntax there, or the dot selector. Alright, so our value, what do we want our value to equal? True or false? Do we just type true or false, or do we get that from somewhere else? What was that, you? Not sure? Anyone else?
Props.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming from the props, right? We've got a true and a false here in the props. We expect our terms input to have the value of true. That seems to match up with our prop. And we expect the news input to have a value of false. That also matches up with our prop. So let's get them. We could do, and I think it would still work in this case, but it wouldn't because of the second test case, in fact, right? Because they're switched in the second test case. So we have to make it dynamic. It's not always the same, depending on the input and the props that we receive. So let's make it based on the props. So how do I do that? Props.terms or props.news, yeah. So for my terms one, I obviously want props.terms. And for my news one, I want props.news. I can get rid of my little ones of those.
So that should work now.
Terms equals props.terms. Did we need that at all? Does it have any text here? Don't think so, right? It's just a checkbox. So we don't need anything in between the tags. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. Can we simplify it any further? Do we need a separate opening input and a closing input?
Probably not.
Not really, right? If there's nothing in between them. So we just make that self-closing. Will that work? Yeah? You sound more confident than usual, so let's try it. And it does. Good, good. So yeah, I mean that wasn't too bad. There were just a few different things to check in your test, right? Check that we've got an input of type checkbox. Has it got its class name? And then we make sure we have a value property in there as well. So we've got a type, a class name, and a value property. And then get the information for that value property from the props object. Cool. But step by step, and you should get there with that one. Any questions? Move on. Awesome. Next. Club tickets. Okay. So Ewan didn't quite get onto that one. Let's take Abdul's as a starting point. Okay, so Abdul obviously added in a return statement, he added in a return div, and then he started to write some sort of ternary statement by the looks of it, yeah? So he's put his curly braces to denote that he wants to write some JavaScript, and then he's begun some sort of ternary statement. So let's take that a bit further and see if we can get it working for him. Again, does this club tickets take any props? Does it receive any props? Yes. What are they called? Or what is it called?
User.
Indeed, yeah. And what type of data type is user?
Object.
An object. How many keys does it have?
One.
Always?
2.
1, 2, varies?
Varies.
Varies, right? In the first case, it's got an age prop, or an age key, and in the second case it's got age and session, again age and session in the third case as well. So number of props varies. Alright, how are we going to determine whether we can purchase our tickets or not? What sort of condition do we need to write?
If the age is less than 18 and the session is afternoon, then it will be purchased.
Age is less than 18? Age is greater than 18. What do we want?
Personally, I did the age is less than 18
Okay.
with the session being afternoon
Yeah.
in brackets as one requirement met, and then an or statement or an or operator, the person is equal to or greater than 18, and that way both of them would speed the purchase.
Okay, I mean, that does work, right? But I think you could make it a little bit simpler, because if they're over 18, it's a purchase always, right? Or if they're not over 18, but the session is the afternoon, then they can also make a purchase. That's my interpretation of that question. And then we would only need one ternary statement, I think, rather than 2. You had a nested ternary, didn't you, I think, Warwick, in your example? Yeah, so let's see if we can just get away with using one ternary. So I think props.age greater than 18 is okay, and that should lead to a purchase. What is the other situation that leads to a purchase? This one. If the age is below 18, users are allowed to purchase tickets if the selected session is on the afternoon. So could we expand this condition using some sort of logical operator, an and or an or? What do you think?
Or
Yeah, I think or, right? If they're older than 18, or what? Prop start session. Yeah, I started writing it. Props.user.session. In this case, yeah. So, because it's a nested property, and we haven't destructured it in any way yet, let's fix that in a second. props.user.age, props.user.session. And what sort of session would allow them to purchase tickets? Afternoon, yeah. How is that written? Is it all lowercase? Looks like it. Afternoon. Then we can return purchased. Otherwise, we return sorry. Don't know what it says. What does it say? Sorry, not allowed. I don't know if there's an exclamation mark. We'll find out in a second when I try to run it. Okay, so if they're over 18 or the session equals to the afternoon, return purchased. Otherwise, sorry, not allowed. Anything wrong with that? Indentation maybe, right? Leap one. It's going to be a good one for YouTube. Got my dog barking in the background or growling.
Just waiting for the squeaky toy to go off.
Yeah. I'll send that off at the end. That signals the end of the session. The squeaky toy goes off. Right. Anyway, let's run that and see if that worked. If not, we'll revise it. An error with the div.
Oh no. Purchase the next ring.
Yeah, exclamation mark.
Is it with an exclamation mark, the purchased? Ah, okay, yep. Other than that, we're good apart from my indentation. Again, expected 4 tabs but found 5. Okay. I was thinking we had to drop it after the... indent it one more after the conditional, but... okay. Fair enough. Any questions on that? Or Porrick, do you understand that way as well as the way that you did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just quickly see what Porrick did as well.
Pretty much that, but a bit more.
I don't think I'll be able to show this very easily, but let me try. Pretty much that, but a bit more was Porrick's answer. So, yeah. So he put it into an extra function. He used a little bit of destructuring on user. We could, of course, take that further and destructure directly into age and session as well. But this is a nice way to break it down. Destructure into user, and then pass user.age and user.session to your function. And ternary wise, yeah, so had 2 separate conditions. If your age is less than 18 and the session is equal to the afternoon, or we've got an or as well, or the age is greater than 18, then purchased. Otherwise, so it's just a lot more specific, right? Yeah.
That's what I mean. Pretty much that, but a bit more.
Yeah, pretty much that, but a bit more. Yeah, nicely summed up. Age is less than 18. Yeah, so it's just being really specific about each of the conditions, whereas you could be less strict with your conditions and it would still catch all the cases, but it's very clear just from looking at that what the entry conditions are to me. So I haven't got too much of a problem with that. That's fine.
Just
Oh,
a little question.
Yeah.
So you said that Abdul started off with opening up curlies, which showed that he was doing JavaScript.
Yeah, inside of JSX. Yeah.
I didn't do anything like that. Is it because I was using an external function that mine was working?
Yeah. Exactly. Right. You've got a JavaScript function here. Therefore, everything inside of it is JavaScript, and all you're returning is text. So it works as well. Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit strange that your component isn't returning any DOM element per se. It's just sort of got a bit of text floating there in the page, right? So you haven't returned the div or anything like that, have you? So
I just returned
Yeah, so you've just returned a bit of text. So if you then wanted to go on and style that text that was returned, it might be a bit harder, right? If you wanted to add a class name or anything to it. It depends what club ticket is rendered inside in your React application. If club ticket was rendered inside something else that had a div and you could style that and manipulate that, and that's fine, yeah. But at the moment it's quite hard to latch onto that bit of text that you've returned if you need to animate it or manipulate it in some way in your application, yeah. You could have just returned a div with age checker inside, that would have also worked, yeah, but no big deal, no big deal. Alright, any questions on beginner?
Could we try the double destructure?
Yep, so what's the syntax for that, Richard?
Colon after user, I think, and then you start putting out of brackets age session.
Age comma session, yeah, like that.
I think we moved the code base after user around the age session part.
The curly brace after user, yeah, so you've got a key and the value of it is another object, absolutely, and therefore that would enable us to just do that, right?
Yeah.
Let's try it. Did we actually check that Port's code was working first? I think we did. Yeah, so that also works. So that's how we can do nested destructuring, yeah, and of course you could take that even further. If age itself was nested, then we can, yeah, go on and put extra properties inside of there.
Can you use nested property example here in the first example previously? Abdul's.
With Abdul's, yeah, if it's a little bit clearer. Let's see whether it'll let me go back. So this was Abdul's one, right? Let's see if it was working or whether I've still missed anything off. Okay, so that's good. So rather than props here, let's say we just want to reference it as age greater than 18 and session. Probably put it all on one line now, right? Which should be nicer. Something like that. So how would we destructure our nested props based on the previous example that we used there?
Not the same again, like
Yeah, so what was it? I'm just trying to test your memory.
colon,
Yeah, user, colon,
braces, age.
yeah, another object, age, and session.
That's it.
My dog is now on his back with his legs up in the air. He's obviously more relaxed, which is a good sign. It took him a while. Yep, so age and session, then hopefully that has destructured age and session correctly. Looking okay, guys? Yeah? Let's try it. Yep, all good. So of course, if you're referencing age and session a lot in your application, it makes sense to destructure it as soon as possible up in your function call. Yeah? Not in your function call, in your function declaration, sorry. Yep, all good. Shall we try a bit of intermediate?
Yeah.
Ooh, yep. I'm gonna shut that one for now. In fact, let's leave it. Can get rid of that one. So this was the intermediate, so 2 people had to go to down at intermediate. Now we need that one. So you nearly let Anais win on your on her birthday, Nilofa, but today you destroyed her today, didn't you? So. Yeah, really nice elegance as well from Nilofa. Naos wasn't bothered about elegance today, I don't think. Cool. So let's see what we can do with this one. I think the first question was the one that tripped most people up. So if you get a hard first question, it can throw you off for the rest of it. Let's have a look. Class movies extends React.component. Alright. Okay, so we've got one prop again here, a list. And this time our list is based on our scenario. Huh?
Yeah,
And we need a paragraph tag in there, definitely. We expect it to be 2 movies, and that comes from our list. So if we've got a class-based component, I suppose we need the usual, right? We need, constructor, yeah. Constructor. Don't know what happened to my other one. What else do we need? We need any state in this case? Yes, no, not sure. Not sure. Let's go without it for now. We'll add it if we need it. I assume you want a render method and a return at least.
it's when the title your director.
It's got to return what, sorry?
Title your
Title, year, and directed by director, yeah? Okay, so you just wanted to write it as what? Where am I getting this information from? I will just call it title for now, right? Then you've got a space. Again, you've got the brackets. You've got a year. Got a space. Comma, then a space. Directed by. And then you've got your director, right? And I assume you want that in a paragraph tag. And movies is equal to our paragraphs, right? Yeah. Okay. Oops. So now the question is, where are we getting this information from? What do I need to pass in? Props, yeah. Do you want to destructure it in any way? Or do you just want to do props for now and then destructure it down here perhaps? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to use our nested destructuring again, or what?
How would you use your nested destruction in here?
Say const open square brackets list equals list of fox. Put the list in the code base and the list of fox doesn't have to be the code base.
Yep. Just that.
We're going to call the map on list and then go through and create p tags from that.
Yeah.
And in the map function we can destructure the list into each movie in the list or each object in the list. So no map takes a callback yet. So where you put movie, we can destructure that into title, year, and director. So you put parentheses and then categories and then title, year, and director.
So you want me to do movie.title, or you want to just do the curly brace destruction?
Yeah, categories.
Yeah. And then you want title, year, and director,
And close parentheses after
and close the parentheses. So that's our arguments taken care of. Yeah. So we're mapping each of those properties from our objects to something, and I guess that something is the paragraph tag that we prepared earlier. Yeah. Anything else missing?
Semicolons everywhere.
Semicolons everywhere. Good point. Yeah. I'm happy with that. Render this dot props return after map after return.
I don't think we need it on line 11 or 4.
11 or 4. 11's there, right? Oh yeah, definitely don't need it there on line 11. That would break it. Anything else?
I thought you wanted a key in the paragraph tag.
Yeah. What would you use as your key?
Movie or title?
Title, I think. Yeah. So key equals just title. Yep.
And I don't think we need the constructor.
And you don't think we need the constructor at all. Const list equals this dot props. Is props going to be defined at the moment?
Yeah, this dot props should automatically be because without the constructor, it automatically creates a constructor.
Okay, should we try it? What's this one? See what expect object 2. So it's not finding movies.
On line 10, P key equals title, workplace, type. Yeah, was why don't you put anything after that? Like after the P key equals title, braces.
What do you mean? Why don't we put anything after it, Ewan?
Like, why is it only title inside braces? Inside the braces.
Because we want something unique for the key and titles. Have stays unique. Well, really, all of them are unique, but title as well.
So why is it not working?
Is that in the map?
Yeah, I just spotted it at the same time as you. Yeah. Okay, now we can test. Do we actually need the constructor? Nope. Good stuff. Simplified even further. So probably we'd just write that as a functional component, right? So if we wanted to do that, we can turn it into a function. Do we need this bit? Nope.
Brackets pops. Or destructure this in the function parameter.
Yeah, I think that would be nice as well. So we could destructure list, whoops, straight away. So we won't need that line. And then we want to return all of that. Have I got an extra semi curly brace now?
Yeah, that curve is going to be new.
And that one needs one up there, right? So we got the key. Let's drop this down. Yeah, I'm not liking the way I've written this, but do some curlies there as well. Get rid of that return. Oops, it's not lined up at all now. There we go. Arguably better. What do we think? This map, where's that come from? Hey?
Yeah, move on the actually that's fine.
Is that? Oh, that's for my map. And then I need to. So that's an extra curly brace in there or not?
Yeah, that curly brace does not belong there.
And then that's for my return. I think we're okay now. Is that one needed?
Yeah, can you move something from
Yeah. Can we just do that? Need one there though, right? No, I don't, because I'm inside a return. Oh.
Yes, everything's indented from mine.
Oh yeah, I've got all the extra indents. Can I do the shortcut on this one? Yes, nice. Missing space before I can brace. There. Unnecessary semicolon on 9, fair enough. And then we're finally there, right? But I think that's about as concise as we could do it, yeah? Does that help, Nalofa? Yeah, so getting our list from our props, mapping over it with the title, year and director destructured, create a paragraph tag for each element in the array, give it a key, which is a good practice, and then render it as wanted or as expected, like that. Question? Yep.
Line 3.
Line 3, yep.
List.map.
Uh-huh.
You've got two opening parentheses.
I have two opening parentheses. Yes, I have one for map and one for my arguments in my callback function that belongs to map. Yeah, so there's brackets around that bit there that I've highlighted to contain my arguments.
Can you expand on the callback function?
So the callback function is just how map works. It takes one argument, and that one argument is a callback function. So you can see that we've passed in an arrow function to map. The arrow function does all this stuff for each element in the list.
So that's a callback function.
So that is a callback function. Yeah, it will run once for the first item and then iterates onto the next, runs itself again, and so forth for each item in the array. So that, in this case, is the callback function. Yeah, just think of it as a function. If it's confusing a little bit, calling it a callback function, but yeah, essentially it is a.
So we've got from line 6 or down to 6 is a callback function.
Yeah, so the return part of the callback function is between those brackets. Yeah, so you've got arguments going into the function, the arrow to say that it is a function, and then this is the function body. This is what runs every time that function is invoked by map. And it gets invoked however many times there are movies in the list. I don't know if that was a very good sentence, but hopefully it makes sense, right? There's 2 movies here, so it runs twice. The callback function runs twice. There is how many movies here? 2 movies again. How are you supposed to remember all that? Practice.
The more you use it, the more you get used to it.
And you'll also find that many functions have this sort of syntax. They just take a callback function. Find takes a callback function. Filter, yeah, they're all very similar.
Can you explain that arrow?
This arrow.
Yeah.
So if
It'll be like my topic that I do on Wednesday.
okay, cool. So Richard's definitely going to talk about this in more detail on Wednesday.
It's not spoilers,
But yeah, you can essentially think of that first part, so here, as function, take some arguments with title, year, director, destructured, and then does all of this stuff. And then we need a return there, right? And to wrap it.
So that's sort of a good way of writing return. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's it's a quicker way, and also it does slightly different things with scoping and lexical this and stuff like that compared to normal functions, but we should be able to take all of that, if I've written it correctly, and stick it in there. God knows, that's alright.
Probably want a semicolon now.
Yeah, semicolon notwithstanding, yeah, it's the same thing, right? The code has a similar outcome, yeah. But you will see it written as an arrow function much more commonly in modern JavaScript. Yeah, so try and get used to your arrow functions as much as possible. And they're very useful as callbacks. Alright.
Because they inherit something previous.
Is that because they inherit something previous? I don't fully understand what you mean. Okay, maybe we'll just leave it for Richard to explain that in a little bit more depth, and we'll just crack on with a few more questions for now. But yeah, Richard's going to look a lot more at scoping, closures, so what things get left in that little memory backpack for the application to use later. Yeah, various things, right? Cool. Let's move on to what else was tough, Nalofa?
We did buttons together. Those the two ones.
Yep, yeah, I've been through buttons with you. I think we've covered this salary one before as well in a previous review, so I'm not going to go through that one. Submit button, I think we've done that, right, with the timeout. This is the buttons one that we covered. Okay, so confirm email.
This is in state.
How did you do on that one? Yeah, so the ones that we covered together, the salary and the buttons, you both did well on, fantastic. Aeneas got close, I think, with this one. So
Yeah,
She typed in the class name email twice, but the second input should have a class name confirming them.
class name, email twice.
Yeah, so return.
Oh, here
Yeah, she's put class name email twice
instead of confirm email. Was that the only thing?
Yeah.
We think, yeah.
That might probably work.
That's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah, let's test it. So
let's should write so we copy paste.
yeah, sure, and technically that code would have worked, right, if it was just a class name issue, but the test doesn't pass because the test can't see them as distinct objects. Yeah. All right, let's try it. So lots of lovely code, 2 methods defined with an email and a confirm email there, so differentiating there for the state. Yeah, but then when we get onto the return, got a React fragment, so maybe indentation it will complain a little bit with as well. We've got class name of email, but here we got class name and it needs to be confirm email, right guys? And we can see that based on here, right? We're trying to set this element into the get confirm email variable, and it never found it, so it would be failing because of that. I'm not going to check the rest, I'm just going to run it and cross my fingers. Okay, so yeah, so close, but yeah, you've done the hard work. Just be careful that you've satisfied all these initial test conditions. It probably went red on that line there. I could have tested it, right? Let's go back. So let's see if it actually gave us a hint when it failed. Ooh, yeah, it sort of did, right? Props is meant to be run on one node.
It's trying to find .email and it's finding two .emails when it says get email.
Yeah, two found instead, right? Yeah. So we're trying to run that line there, and it's expecting to find just one get email, and in fact it's got two, right?
I think the reason it doesn't fail on find .confirm email is because there's no assertion.
No, it's just a setup, right, for the test rather than.
What does assertion mean?
So like to actually confirm that that function has found something. So if it hasn't found something, it will just return undefined. So at the moment, get confirm email is a function that we're defining to do something, but we haven't called it or anything. We just said here's our variable that equals a function. We're not going to do anything with it yet. So it wouldn't fail on that line.
Yeah, our assertions start here essentially, Ewan, yeah, on the expect statements. We're expecting something, so we're testing that. Yeah, we expect it to be.
Yeah, so it's displaying that very.
Yeah, so if we can't view that. Yeah, so it's a hint. It's not the easiest of hints to decipher, but yeah, it gives you a little clue, right? There were two things with the same name. Oops.
I mean, yeah, if you didn't know that before, I don't
Yeah, it's a tough one to spot. Yeah, definitely. Although both Nolofa and Richard seem to have spotted it before I even looked at the question. So have you been reviewing the code base already? Have you? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I haven't got Slack open obviously because we're broadcasting. No worries. Good. Let's move on to the last one. Oops. And the last one was the fruit picker one. What was hard about this, Nolofa, or anything? It looks fairly straightforward. What was the catch?
We have this in the beginners also, the last one.
You had it what, sorry? You reviewed this before?
No, it's
No?
in the beginners, like, similar to this.
Oh, very similar to a beginner's one. Yeah, I don't think there's anything special there really, right? I can't see anything that would particularly trip you up. So we can see that we've.
The select tab. If you have done the beginner select tab, you can do it where it's an option you have to hard code it. That's it. Like, you know.
Oh, just you're saying there the hard coding bit you might not be aware of. Yeah, perhaps.
Because in first case you just have Apple and Linux is already so there the confusion is there, like you know to use props over there or image.
Yeah, so you define all your options, don't you, in a select tag, and then which one is selected by default,
It takes it.
yeah, is passed in from the props, right? So initially Apple is that one that's visible on your drop down list, and then of course you can change, so on your change event you can select something else from your drop down list, and that will update the state so that that value is visible. Yeah, it's a really nice one, I guess, to actually put into an application and play around with and see what it's actually doing, right? Maybe the code is a bit ambiguous, but once you see it in action, I think it becomes a lot clearer. Okay, I think we've probably got time just for a couple of expert ones. So, do you want me to do the first one, Richard, or you want to come do the first one and then? Yeah, if you're ready. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the sandwich. So I'm going to leave that, and I will pull up the expert. So for those of you who are thinking about moving on to the expert challenges or just want a good challenge, then okay, so we got that there. And if Richard does need his code, it's there, but I'm sure he could just do it off the bat again. Okay. I think we said probably the easiest two for you to get your head around were question 2 and 3. So we're just going to visit those today, just to give you a taste of Expert React. Alright, so I'll skip that first one, and then it's all yours. No boilerplate code, as you can see. You've just got to write the whole thing yourself. Like a skeleton code.
Stuff that's
Code
also
now.
generated. So we see in the question area, it wants us to define something called reset password. So we can create a class called reset password.
Might just have to zoom slightly, Richard, if you can. Control this. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, try that.
So let's just set up a skeleton of a React class. So a React class would have a constructor method and a render method, and at the moment this is the very basic of a React class. So we see now the evaluator on the left wants to find something which, a tag which has a class password, and something which has a class confirm password. Well, not sure if you can see the rest of that. Yes. Yeah. And an input tag with type submit. So we can put those 3 tags inside of our return.
Yeah, nice.
So we go input type equals password. And give this the class name password. So that's the first one. And we can do the same thing for the second one over here.
Just confirm password. Yeah.
And finally, an input tag for the submit. So input type equals submit. Okay. Now we see the evaluator is running, is trying to run change events on our input tags. So it's simulating change events, and it's passing in an event with a target value. So this set value is a function to simulate changes on our input tags, and we see this set value gets called every single time here, with the value being variable letters. So it first calls it on our password tag, and our password can't at the moment handle that, so we're just going to create a handle function for it. Handle P or handle password, and we're going to get the event. We can see that we are going to store it. So when password is less than 4, then submit is disabled. So we need to actually disable submit, because after every check it's going to check if our submits property is equal to true, disable property is equal to true or false. So submit's disabled property can be defined here, disabled, and we want this to be something that varies depending on what our input is. So we could say disabled equals something belonging to state. That way every time our state updates, the submit's disabled status will update. So we could say this dot submit enabled. Now, if it's disabled, then it should be false. So actually, let's call it disabled.
Directly write in this dot state disabled.
True. So it should be this dot state dot disabled, and we're going to put our initial state here. So disabled false. So when it first renders, it's going to create the submit button and then look in this dot state, and we know it's by default false, or rather true actually. So it is disabled. So disabled equals true. So it'll check true. So when we get a password, we're going to get this text, and we know that this text is incorrect. So we can handle it and say if or rather, we'll probably want to store it. So we go this dot set state. So we're going to get a password from event. So you say password equals event dot target dot value, because we know that this string is stored in value of target and the event that gets sent in. So this is all one big object. And then we also want to check our disabled if it should be true or not. So we know that if it's less than 4, we should set it to true. So let's just change this. We can say const password equals event dot target dot value. So we know that this variable password now stores these letters. And when we set state with a variable which has the same name as a property of the object, we can just shorthand it to a single word. We can actually put here our password, and we'll probably have to do the same for confirm password, because later on we'll be comparing the two things. So we'll be checking if password is equal to confirm password. Let's just set this to nothing. Okay, so we're going to get a password, and we need to check if this is greater than or is less than 4 characters. So if it's less than 4 characters, then we want it to be true. So we say password.length is greater than or equal to 4 characters, because if it's less than, it should be not disabled, and if it's more than, it should be okay. Actually, I said that. Yes. So if it's less than that, then that would be true. So disabled would be true. And we'll put semicolon there. Now that we've created the handle function, we can put it over into our input. So let's just reformat this a little bit. So on change to handle change events that get simulated equals this dot handle p. So we give it our handle function. And when we want to set a class function or a method as the handler for an event, we would have to also bind it to this class to give it the class's properties, because we're trying to call this dot set state inside a handle function, but it probably won't be able to see it.
How do you do that?
So we're going to over here say this dot handle p equals. So we're going to give in handle p some properties. So this dot handle p dot bind this, and this will probably come up later in the talk that I give on Wednesday. So
we passed the event to handle P yet?
So we don't actually have to specify that. So if we just put this in, this dot handle p, then it will automatically pass that as the argument into the function. And we can do the exact same thing for confirm password. So essentially we can just copy and paste everything we just typed in there. And there's probably an easier way to write this down. Actually might show how to do that after I've gotten this to work. So just changing everything for confirm password. And give this over to our other input tag. So on change equals this dot handle CP. Okay. Now there's another thing we need to check. So if the password is valid but not confirmed, so we need to check if the password that gets passed in is equal to one that we've already stored. So if they change the confirmed password, we need to check if it's equal to our password. And if it changes the password, we need to check if it's equal to the confirmed password. So we can say and, so disabled should be true if the password is less than 4 and the password is not equal to our confirmed password. For the handle one. And we do the same thing but we'll swap it around for the confirm one. You see these two are quite similar, but let's see if it can work at the moment. Okay. So when they don't match, the submit should be disabled, and when they do match, the submit should be enabled. So we've got the on handle changes, we've got submit disabled. Right, let's see if it could work. Let's see what errors can't come up. Okay, so we're failing over here, so it's finding that our disabled is equal to false. So we know it's set to true at the moment, so this should be true. So one of these set states is actually changing it to false. So one of these things is not working. So the password length should be less than 4 for it to be disabled, and the password should not equal this .state.confirm password. So let's see. So when it gets that, and password should not equal that.
Well, how can you confirm your password if your password is less than 4?
Password? Pardon?
Like it asks you to have a password more than 3 characters, and you're asking it to also confirm that the password's been confirmed from like 13 to 18,
So
as I understand.
so we have the password from what they've inputted, and we want to check if it's less, we want to check what the disabled should be after they've inputted that. And disabled should be true if the password they've entered is less than 4 characters.
Yeah, so that would be a tip.
And it should also be true if the password doesn't equal our confirmed password. Let's see why this isn't working at the moment. This dot handle P, this dot handle CP. And it's failing on that. This dot submit properly disabled. This dot state dot disabled.
So from 22 to 27.
Yes. What about 22 to 27?
Is that saying the same thing as 12 to
Yeah.
18?
The only difference is that this one operates on the confirmed password, that the confirmed password string that gets inputted. So this password input box takes handle P, and this password input box for confirmed password takes handle CP. And now we just need to see why disabled is being set to false instead of true. So we set disabled to true at the start. Disabled password length is less than 4. which is true for this instance, ABC, and password, which is ABC, does not equal this .state.confirm password, which is currently nothing. So once all that's passed in, disabled should equal true. I think disabled is a very good name for it, although when I wrote my solution I wrote it enable submit, so I had it the other way around, and I was testing logic the other way around. So it would be
You can have disabled false.
Yeah, I was going to say. That means telling you. Try it.
well
Yeah, do it like that.
enable submit. So the variable I used in my original solution was a word called a variable called enable submit. So if it should be enabled, then enable submit would be true, and if it shouldn't be enabled, then enable submit would be false. So if enable submit is true, then disabled should be false. So it would be the negation of that, and that means that the logic inside this is flipped around. So enable submit is only going to be true if the password length is greater than or equal to 4 and the password is equal to this .state.confirm password. And let's see if the switching around of this logic flips this around. Let's check I'm actually using .length properly. So confirm password.length, password.length, password equals my password is that. Password length. So enable submit is only true when password's length is greater than 4 and the password is equal to the confirmed password. And for some reason, when you flip around the logic, it works. Okay.
Must be a good reason that we're missing at this stage.
We could try to go back and see why the reverse logic didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. As a good mind exercise, because we know what works, and now let's try and figure out why it doesn't work. Okay, so we've set everything back to the disabled one. So disabled is true if the password's length is less than 4, or
I think it was
Yeah,
said
instead
line
of
7.
and.
pardon?
What you can say? I was to say line 7.
Yes.
That was false. That didn't make it work.
Well, because disabled should be true if okay. So we start off with true. So this should be disabled. But if we set it off as false, then this would be enabled at the start, although it doesn't check if it's enabled at the start. Really, I don't think the initial value would matter. So we could set this as undefined, and it would still produce the same sort of stuff, because the only time it checks it is after we've set a value, and set a value would call one of these two things, which changes the state, which actually sets the first value of disabled that actually gets checked. So this initial thing shouldn't really matter at the moment.
Okay.
I think so. Disabled is true when the password's length is less than 4, or password isn't equal to the confirmed password. So how do I get the pipes?
Pipes? They're down here.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, yeah, one place.
Right, so I think if we use pipes, it might work. So disabled would be true if the password's length is less than 4, or the password doesn't equal the confirmed password.
That's it. Oh, what? So what? Has he got a password already? Or
Yes, so we're assuming that we might have a confirmed password already, because this gets called again. So get password input, and then get confirmed password input would be checking against the password that we already have. So at this point in time, when he calls this, we would have stored this as our password. Now he's calling confirm password, and he's given us these strings. So when he finally gives us this string, we know that this confirm password string is equal to this password string that we've already stored beforehand. If we're not storing and checking these things, then when this comes and it tries to check it, we haven't stored this, so it'll check against, well, nothing.
Did you get all that, Ewan?
Yeah, assuming that it's got a password already, and we're just checking
Just
that
write
fact that
and
the password is working.
Yep. Nice.
Okay, let's see if so our switch now, our disabled logic now works. Okay, so let's see if we can actually reduce this code. So we have basically very duplicated code, and the logic is almost the same.
And that was only because you changed it to the pipes and undefined at the start.
Well,
Define shouldn't matter, right?
yeah, this could be anything. This could be that. It'll probably still work. Yeah. So this initial value doesn't matter. In fact, I could probably just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Get rid of these two. Just get rid of that. Let's see what happens.
Really? But you're referencing state values. So
That's
Doesn't work.
true. Yes. So it's gonna it's trying to read property disabled of null. So if we don't set state, then this is probably not going to work. So I think we could leave this dot state equals. Let's see what happens if we do that. What is the bare minimum we can get away with? Okay, so
it will append it, yeah.
Mhm. So we don't actually have to state anything there at the moment.
What does that mean though, like for this dot state equals?
So here we see these two curly braces. When they are used in this position, it stands for an empty object. Much like if you saw this, that stands for an empty array. Well, this is an empty string. So
Why have you used that there? Does it
okay, so the reason why I put that there is because this dot state should equal something, because when I go down to here, so the way this,
what are you begin with?
yes, well, we're going to be checking states. So this component would be created. It goes through the constructor and sets stuff up, and then immediately after that, it goes to the render method here. And when it goes through the render method, it sees, okay, I'll create this, and let's create this input tag submit. And when it gets to this property disabled, and it tries to create the property, and it sets a value to it, it goes this dot state dot disabled, but this dot state hasn't been defined yet. If we got rid of that part here, then this dot state is probably undefined unless in the background it actually sets it to something. So when it tries to access the property of this dot state dot disabled, it's going to access the property dot disabled on something that doesn't exist yet. But if we actually set it to where did I put it? An object, then we know that the object might have properties, but if we access a property that doesn't exist on the existing object, then the property that doesn't exist is undefined. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got these two functions here, handle P and handle CP, which are basically the same thing. So we know that we want to change these properties, password and confirm password. We want to make sure that they are unique, because if we set state password twice, then they're going to be overwriting each other. So we want one function that does two things. So let's create a second function in between this, handle password, let's say. This is going to be our ultimate password function. And we call, so we're getting an event.target.value, so we can say this dot set state. So what are we setting state on? So we need to set state on something that remains unique and set state on the disabled part. So we need to check if event.target.value.length is less than 4. So we need to check if our input's length is less than 4 characters long, then that's going to be disabled. or if our input doesn't equal I'm wondering how would we do this other thing? Doesn't equal something, another property, the other property.
Oh, we're just gonna have to pass in another variable to handle passing.
Yes. I'm wondering how much we can get away with typing as little as possible. Okay, so we know that we can possibly, I wonder if we can access this. So I know from past experience you can pass a property to your tag and you can access it from the event. So if I was to say password, and we're going to get a lot of the same thing here, we could probably, yes, I'll just put name there for the sake of seeing if we can get something that works. Right, so we're given another property, and we're setting the property of this input tag's name to password, and the property of the confirmed password inputs tag's name to confirmed password. So we know that if we were to go to event.target.name, we would get password or confirmed password, depending on what it's called on. And value would be the thing that gets passed in. Right, so we know that, we know that this what's name. So we can destructure the name from event, so event.target. So this event.target would have something called .name and something called .value. So to get the name part of it out, we can say const name equals event.target. And we know that when we want to set the key of an object to something, which is a variable, we would put the variable within square brackets. So for example, if I was to say create an object, so let's say, for sake of argument, if we look over here, and I say const cat equals blah, 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 whatever, meow. If I want to make this object, so I'm looking at this object, and object takes a key and a value. If I want this key to be a meow, I could put meow. If I put cat, the key wouldn't be meow, it would be cat. So if I wanted it to be meow,
Try not to say that word too often. I don't recognise it.
oh, sorry.
CAT.
Then that would be meow now. Yeah. So it'd say meow is the key, meow is equal to value. So knowing that, if we look at our case here, we say const name, so we get the name part of event.tag, and we know the name refers to either password or confirmed password. So if we put name here, it would be password or confirmed password. And the value of that would be event.target, or we could destructure this further. So we know event.target has a value and a name, so we could say name equals value, and we can shorten this down to value.length. Right, now we know that we are going to set something, so whatever the name is, to a value. So the value would be whatever these strings are, and the name would be whatever tag this is called on. So if the tag is called on this tag, or the name is password. If it's called on this tag, the name is confirmed password. So we're setting a key of an object to either password or confirmed password. So that's fine, we're storing the passwords. Now we need to check if the disabled should be true or false. So disabled is true if the value.length is less than 4. So if the password's characters are less than 4. It's also true if the password, so the password that we just got, doesn't equal, and it shouldn't equal the other password that we stored. Now, this might take a bit of thinking. How are we going to get the other thing? So this could be called on password or confirm password. If it's called on password, we need to check confirm password. And if it's called on confirm password, we need to check password. So, what we could do, possibly, I'm not sure if we're allowed to do this, but maybe we could set our own property. So, this might be a bit redundant. Other. What is a good name for this? Oh, let's just call it other for now. So we go. So we know that it wants to check confirm password, and we know that this one wants to check password. And it's probably not the best way to do it, but we could say other. And we could say that it shouldn't equal this dot state other. So let me just check if this works at the moment, and if it does, then I can explain how it works. And if it doesn't work, well, we'll have to think a bit harder as to how to make it work. Okie dokie. Forgot semicolon. Unexpected comma, line 13. Oh. Expected comma. Okay, cannot be properly bind of undefined. We haven't binded it, so yeah, there's some extra stuff we have to do. So I deleted the other functions, so we can get rid of that, and I can actually pass in this function here to handle both of them. So now they're both going to call the same function, and this function does all the work in the back end to behind the scenes to figure out what to set. So let's see if this works. Undefined to equal true. So now it needs to be set to true. Say
You called it disabled.
yes. Right, now. Okay, so now we need to make it false. So at the moment, this is evaluated to true. Yeah.
Always true at the moment.
It's always true at the moment. So at some point, it should be false. So at some point, this should be setting it to, or one of these two should be setting it to incorrect. So if the value is greater than 4, or the value is so if the value is greater than 4 and the value equals this dot state, so the value equals passwords are the same. So let's see. Otherwise password. So perhaps this isn't working, which would be a shame. So we know that value is relating to our current thing. So if we are looking at this input tag, we know that the value of this would be whatever's passed into there. So for example, let's say we get this. So this gets ABCD. So if we go from here to the function, we get the event. So we get the name would be confirm password, other would be password, and value would be ABCD. We set the state of confirm password to ABCD. We check if ABCD.length is less than 4, which it isn't, so that should be true. Whoops, that should be false. And that should also be, so this ABCD should not equal this dot state dot password.
It should be less than equal to.
Pardon? Single equals?
Why shouldn't it be less than or equal to 4? Less than 4.
Because if it's equal to 4, then when the length is 4, that's fine. But if it's less than 4, then that's not fine. So if it's less than 4, we should disable it. If it is 4, then we shouldn't disable it.
I was just thinking, I think C# or something. If you write less than 4,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't actually, like you write except 4, and like we'll look at 3, 2, 1, but if you put equals 2 or less than 4, it will look at the 4 and the 3 and the 1. That's what I mean there. Do you have to do something?
No, I think that should be fine.
Okay, very.
Sorry, I'm a
Perhaps.
little bit concerned over the properties we're using. We're using name, other, and something else, right? So the event object itself, I think, already has a name property. I don't know if that's
Yes.
interfering with it, or whether you're able to overwrite that. I'm not too sure.
Certainly the name part should work. The other part, I'm not sure if other is working.
Yeah, I don't know whether others getting passed to your event object. You could instead define password or confirm password based on the name. So sort of let other equal, and then if name is equal to password, then you want it to be the other one. And
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we don't have to pass in an other
So
thing.
you wouldn't have to pass in other property. That's one alternative.
Yeah. Let's see what is being passed in. So I'd like to check if name is being password or confirm password and other is. So let's just see if name and other are actually generating anything. So we can console.log and we'll see what gets passed in when we call these two things. Ah, they're both undefined. That's very interesting because I know name, I've seen name to work before, but not both of them to not work. So I guess what I put here is now I'd actually pass an event.
You just pass in the string with password. That's your second argument. That would definitely work.
Alright, let's see if this might fix it. Rename undefined. Yeah, so console, these two error statements, they pop up every time you call console, but console does work. It's the elegance console just complains about it. Right, so it's trying to be properly name of undefined. I think maybe now this isn't working. This dot handle password, event dot target. Oh, so I don't need to put that anymore. Yeah, it's still going undefined. So this is going well beyond the question. But I could try to figure out why this isn't working, because I have written something like this before, and I think I've come across this sort of problem before, and I could try to figure out what my solution was.
It's 1:45, so do you want to leave it there and have a look at your solution? Cool. And that's one way to get out of it.
I could check out my
Yeah, it's quick, but
let's see. Ooh, Codeflix probably has one of them. Where did I put it? And admin probably. Admin list. Admin ads. Name. So we've got a handle input there. I see. So the way I had it here was if it gets an event, we destructure the target and we just pass in target.name, target.value into the function. I'm not sure if you can see it here. So this is how I wrote my handler for this one. So instead of event, we destructured it to target, and then we called the function handle input, and we passed it target.name, target.value. And let's actually move it down. So we see we've got an input tag which has a name here, and onChange equals that handle function that we set up.
Yeah.
So let me see.
What's the difference? I don't quite see the difference.
I can't quite see the difference either from. So we have a callback function here. This callback function gets the event. So let's see if we can replicate it. So we have a callback function here. This callback function gets the event. Turn it in, destructure into target, and a password. Event dot. So the only two things I'm going to be getting from that is the name and the value, I suppose. Name, value, and other. So I know that target should have a name, target.value, and target.other. Oh, this is going well over the line. Alright, let's see if, well, we'll probably have to enter the same thing twice for the other one.
I think I'm preferring two separate functions.
Yeah.
But they got
The amount of code we have to duplicate for this part.
We've added about 10 new things instead of duplicating them.
So I'm not sure why name isn't getting passed in here. I think this is something I'll have to debug for later then.
Yeah, absolutely. But thanks for that anyway. But we're going to have to leave it there. Obviously, if you go back about 10 or 15 minutes, you can see a relatively simple solution to one of the expert questions. That was more just, I guess, intellectual curiosity and seeing how we can play around with code, which is again a really useful exercise. So please try and do something similar yourself with your code snippets and your answers. See if you can solve it in a different way. See if you can improve the solutions. Really useful exercise to do at any point. We're done on challenges today, and if you want, we will do JavaScript next time on Friday, or there is the option of doing 3 challenges a week now if you want to make sure that you get those blue tick criteria. So that is up to you. Please let me or Ricardo know obviously by Wednesday if you fancy doing another challenge on Wednesday morning. We don't have to do a huge review like we've done today. We can just do a very minimal review so it doesn't take up all your day. But it just gives you the opportunity to start progressing onto expert JavaScript or intermediate React for those that haven't got the blue tick criteria on that already. Any feedback on what I've just said? What do you feel? 2 challenges, 3 challenges a week?
I'm still number one.
You're just saying up for one?
I thought we all hit the blue tick for UI.
There is no blue tick for UI, so it's intermediate React 40 plus, expert JavaScript 40 plus. They are the blue tick criteria.
So both we need to get.
Both? Yep.